Friends, welcome back to Leadosophy. You are here with an open mind because that is the rule and not the exception. It has been quite some time since the Leadosophy show has been on air. 40 to 45 days, I think, somewhere around there. My wife and I recently made the journey from Washington State to Washington D.C. Today's episode is about the return of Leadosophy and an exploration of self-purpose. Your self-purpose, my self-purpose. We'll kind of talk about that topic on today's show. Hope you enjoy it. Here we go.
Are you ready to permanently fuse leadership and philosophy? Then a word of caution. You are about to enter the fully abstract yet wholly concrete realm of Leadosophy. Our ideas are not always so clear and distinct. To validate this proposition, we welcome the host of Leadosophy, Tim Wood.
All right, friends, here we go. Leadosophy returns, exploration of self-purpose. That's kind of what I titled this episode. Again, my wife and I were having a conversation over the weekend, and it had been, as I mentioned, it's been quite some time since I podcasted, almost 40 or 45 days. Trying to figure out what to podcast about, and she proposed the idea that we talk about this idea of purpose or self-purpose because I've been frustrated over the last, 40 or 45 days, having lost momentum doing the Leadosophy podcast, moving to a brand new area, moving from West Coast to East Coast. I don't have a job currently. My wife has a job right now where she's doing some really great things. And I found myself in a support role, which I have welcomed, and I enjoy that support role. But sometimes I struggle with my own purpose or my self-purpose. And I think sometimes when you move to a new area or move to a new location, you don't know anybody. You're learning the area all from scratch, making friends again, and trying to reestablish or reignite a social circle, whatever that might be. Sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes it's difficult, and that's where I'm at right now. So my wife basically said, hey, when you get back in the saddle, which what I'm doing, getting on that horse and riding again, why don't you talk about purpose, your self-purpose and how you've struggled with that? And she said, maybe you'll connect with somebody who has gone through similar experiences and maybe help them get through their struggles or whatever that might be. And I thought that was a great idea. So shout out to her for the inspiration behind this episode. But what I've learned over the last 40, 45 days of not doing Leadosophy, it's what I've missed. I've missed that daily intellectual grind. I've missed getting up in the mornings and preparing for my show that I've been cranking out 3 times a week. And I've been doing that consistently since November, from November 2020 to the end of May of 2021, I had done Leadosophy consistently for, almost 6 months, almost 7 months, 3 shows a week. And that fueled my fire weekly, getting up every morning, writing, doing some reading, coming up with different leadership ideas, philosophy ideas for the show. And sometimes the shows weren't very long, maybe 10 minutes, but still I miss that flow of the weekly shows and the momentum, which I'll talk about a little bit more. I miss thinking consistently about leadership, but not so much philosophy. Because I believe I thought almost daily about philosophy, which wasn't the case with leadership, which was surprising over the course of the last 40, 45 days. And we had, when this journey across country from West Coast to East Coast, my wife and I and my oldest son, we spent 10 days camping, which was a blast. And then spent some time with family and friends in the Midwestern states where my wife and I are both from. But I didn't think a whole lot about leadership per se over the last month and a half. It was mainly about philosophy. I thought a lot about almost daily. And I did a little bit of writing, and I did a lot of philosophical reading over my journey across country. But again, not so much about leadership. And I'm okay with that. I think I look at leadership more academically and practically, probably a combination of both. But I launched Leadosophy to talk about, leadership in an academic and practical sense. But philosophy to me is a way of life. I like to think about philosophy all the time. I like using the tools of critical thought consistently whenever possible. And again, this is not just something that philosophers do. I think we're all a philosopher. We all have the ability to question ideas and topics on a deeper level, dig deeper on certain topics or things that we know to be true that just may not be so true. And that's what I've done over the last 40 or 45 days. I've definitely dove into the world of philosophy nearly daily, I would say. But I will say that I truly miss the purpose that Leadosophy gave me. Leadosophy podcasts has provided me with intrinsic worth and intrinsic purpose. And again, I think refinding that purpose is kind of what this podcast is about, or talking about me refinding my purpose. And again, something that you may be struggling with as well as you make a transition to a new area, a new place, whatever it might be. But back to that intrinsic purpose, I think there's something magical that happens when you discover or embark on a journey or a purposeful journey. And I'm thinking about purpose that nourishes the soul, purpose that drives that inner desire to create, and not just create, to achieve something, to learn, to grow, or to even transform, right? I think this topic of inner purpose is really how I want to kind of re-enter the atmosphere of the Leadosophy podcast, especially after a lengthy absence. Hopefully our craft, I think about my ship, hopefully our craft won't burn up upon re-entry if I could just keep extending that metaphor until I exhaust it. But this idea of purpose or self-worth is really a weighty topic, right? This is something philosophers have been wrestling with for millennia, from Stoic philosophy, ancient philosophy, Eastern philosophy. It matters not what type of philosophy or where it came from. All sorts of pockets of the globe over the course of thousands of years have talked about this idea of purpose. What are we here for? What are we designed to accomplish? What are we supposed to accomplish in this life? Right? Those are obviously very weighty questions. And again, this was my wife's idea for this episode because I quite frankly, I lost my momentum. I lost that feeling of purpose, which is not a new feeling for me. When I retired from the Coast Guard in 2015, circa 2015, August, September, October, and moved to Fort Lauderdale to follow my wife's career, to allow her the freedom to fully pursue her career unfettered. I struggled for a few months in the post Coast Guard career. In my retirement world, what am I going to do? What am I to do with myself now? I'd finished a 20-year military career, still young, late 30s. That's when I, after, again, shout out to my wife, she's the one who encouraged me to go back to school, which I did. That launched me on my philosophy journey. So it's one of those things where you're in this transition period from something you've known, something that was comfortable, which was my previous life on the coast of Washington, doing the Leadosophy podcast 3 times a week. And you're thrusted into this new area with new people, new location, new everything, new house, new belongings. And I currently don't have a job right now. So it's not like I could go back to work and I'm immediately thinking about just going back to work every day. I'm kind of a stay-at-home dad with 2 dogs. We have 2 Great Danes. So, there's a purpose there. I help take care of the dogs while my wife's away. My children don't live with me. They live in another state. And we talk often, obviously, but I'm not getting my kids ready for school every day. I don't have anything like that going on. I have not pursued, per se, a job right now, another job. So I wanted to get back into reading and writing and podcasting, which I have the ability to do right now. But it was just kind of re-engaging that. How was I going to re-engage the podcast when I have not been doing it for so long? So again, maybe someone out there listening or watching has experienced this feeling of being adrift on an ocean where one's purpose, maybe it's not that you don't have one, it's just difficult to discover or rediscover. Or you might be dealing with a sea of confusion as to where your life is headed, what course you're supposed to be on. Where's the journey going? What door am I to take now? And I think it's okay. I think that one thing I'm taking away from this podcast is it's okay to embrace this period of confusion, which is partly what I'm learning about myself. You know, again, my wife has been tremendously helpful with this. We all have a role to play, and our roles change with new adventures, new journeys, new jobs, new homes and new cities, and even new relationships. And I think that's important. What is our role to be? Especially we have to rediscover our role. And I'm learning that I must embrace, and if I can borrow the words of Marcus Aurelius, Stoic philosopher, I must embrace, quote, a disposition which gladly accepts all that happens as necessary, as usual, as flowing from a principle and source of the same kind. Marcus Aurelius also recommended that we, quote, observe constantly all things take place by change, and accustom thyself to consider that the nature of the universe loves nothing so much as to change the things which are, and to make new things like them. So I'm going to kind of close this Leadosophy podcast out. Again, I'm on this journey of self-exploration, self-re-exploration. I want to close out by saying that on any normal day, I think the mind can be a tremendous attic of clutter and disarray. I believe that. And I think change, maybe large-scale change, small change, I think especially major life changes can add tremendously to the clutter within our minds. And I look to philosophy as a tool. It's a tool to order the thoughts that lie scattered along the shores of our minds. And this is largely why I like philosophy. This is why I created Leadosophy. Leadosophy is a fusion of leadership and philosophy. It's a way to order the thoughts in my mind, thoughts about not just leadership, but life itself. And I do this openly, and I'm grateful to get back in the saddle of the Leadosophy podcast. And again, I'm going to close with dedicating this episode to my wife, who inspired me to get back on that horse and ride after a, almost month and a half, going on 2 months absence of podcasting. She knows me better than I know myself, or so it seems at times. So thanks for watching. Remember, Leadosophy is about using the tools of philosophical thought to deepen our understanding of leadership and of life. On the next episode, I want to talk about my journey across country, our journey across country, and maybe some things that I've picked up along the way about not just really philosophy, but just life in general, kind of using that philosophy nexus to help me understand the journey that we've taken and where we're at now in Washington, D.C. So if you've never been to Washington, D.C., come check it out. It's a really awesome place. All right, we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for watching and listening to another episode of Leadosophy. If you liked what you heard today, hit that subscribe button and check out Leadosophy.com and learn more about Tim's ideas on philosophy and leadership. We'll see you next time.